Good day and welcome to another fantastic moment on the show, 360 Sport. My name is Mudashiv Shitu and I'll be anchoring the next few minutes as we look at something interesting in the world of sport. As usual, we know that we don't just talk about football or one of the popular sports across the globe. We go dive a little bit and look at sport that has been making waves across the continent of Africa, not just Africa and Europe. And today we're talking about fencing. And not better person that we talk about fencing in British and also in Africa than the president of British fencing, that's Patricia Ayenuro, who has been doing so well for fencing in British and also in Africa. It's good to have you on the show, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Last year, October, you were appointed by the British Fencing Federation as the president of British Fencing. Let's start. What does that mean to you? Because it seems that this is the first time we see a black woman, I can use that word, a black woman, at the ends of affair of a sport federation in Europe. How true is that, and tell us more about it?
I'm very proud to be the first Black woman, actually head of president of any sort of federation. I think not just in fencing, but in other sports as well. I feel very proud, and I think if I can do it, it shows that there is room there for all of us to achieve it. I've been involved in fencing for a long time, for more than 20 years, and I'm very passionate about the sport. And I think anybody that is passionate about sport, can make this journey to get there.
Well, I tried to check a bit of your profile. Something was a bit missing, and you not clarified for the rest of the world watching us. How did you come across fencing? Were you a fencer? Or what brought you about fencing and you climbed to the top of the ladder in the sport?
I wasn't. I have fenced. I didn't start as a fencer. Actually, my route is a very different route. My son was a fencer, and he fenced for Great Britain, and he was actually Commonwealth junior champion when he was fencing. But as we know, fencing is not a sport where, well, in Europe, where there are very many Black people involved. And when my son started fencing, I took an interest. I've always been interested in sports and sport development. That's always been my background. And so when he started fencing, I got really interested and decided to take up the sport of fencing myself. And so I fenced for about 8 years. And then I decided to start traveling with the team. I thought, very passionate about the sport and trying to get more people of color involved in fencing as well, because I realized when we went to competitions, there were hardly any people that looked like myself or my son, not many Black people. So I opened up a club as well in London, and the club is doing very well. And we're one of the few clubs that is very dominated by minorities, and I wanted to prove that we are very good. Fencing has always been seen as a very elitist sport, but it's not. It should be for everybody. So that was how I got involved in fencing.
Well said. I was already engrossed with that part of the story, but let's look a bit into fencing in British, and that's the evolution of British fencing. I bet you have to tell us to confirm whether British is one of the top fencing countries in the world, because we know that you see a lot of Asian countries into fencing, and they've done so well from themselves. How can you really put British fencing in compared to other parts of the world when it comes to fencing?
I think fencing. There are a few countries where fencing is their main sport. I'd say, for example, Italy. They have a very huge background in fencing. Hungary, it's sort of like France, the national sport. The Olympics were in France this year, and it was a huge spectacle, but a very good event. And I think it was the best fencing, sort of Olympic fencing in history. Britain now, I think we're improving. We have had Olympians in the past, and so I would say we're sort of. I wouldn't say we're the top fencing nation because fencing is not our main sport. I think, as you know, soccer is probably one of the main sports, and athletics we do very well. But fencing, I think we're getting there. I'm quite excited because I've been involved with the team for with the actual sports and the athletes for the last 10, 15 years. And there are a lot of them coming through, and we've had quite a few medals this season from the youngsters. So actually, that's quite exciting for the next Olympic Games. So I'm really looking forward to LA, as I'll be president up until at least up until LA, and I'm working with Team GB to try and get some of our fences there. So I think if you're looking at the younger fences coming through, I'd say yes, we are actually at the top at the moment because this season we've already won quite a number of medals. But I wouldn't want to say something untrue, but the fencing nations, as you said, are like the Koreans, the Japanese, you know, where fencing is far more people fence, America. But in Europe, I'd say we're holding our own, and things are getting better as well.
Okay, I want to ask this question, and it really boils down to the fact that it seems difficult. With my sojourn as a sport journalist and media personality, it's difficult to get people into fencing in this part of our world, and it's not very attractive. But I know that that's not the same in British. How do you get people involved in fencing in British? Or let me use in Britain the entire.
Yeah, I think one of the things is changing the narrative, because I think in Britain at first fencing used to be a sport that only people you had to be very wealthy, but actually that isn't the case. One of the barriers I think of fencing is obviously it can be quite expensive because of the equipment. So we're trying to level the playing field so that we're making fencing accessible. So at the grassroots level, we're getting people in at grassroots level, making it fun. Fencing is one of those sports where it's not just physical; it's also a very mental sport. So it attracts a lot of people who are, a lot of the thinkers in sport. So it's not just physical; it's very tactical. So it's almost like I call it physical chess. So it attracts another sort of generation of people. So I think one of the barriers has been maybe the cost issue, that people think it's expensive. But I think now that in Britain, we've made so many programs to make it accessible to everybody. And I think that's the key, is making sure that people know that, buying the equipment, if you can join clubs are the most important thing. Is the only way to grow a sport is to have more and more clubs, to make it accessible through clubs, through schools. I think if we can get it into schools, there are many schools now, whether they're state schools or private schools, where fencing is included as a normal curricular sport that people can do, not just football and athletics, but now fencing is getting into a lot of schools. So I think if you start off at the school level, at the grassroots level, making it more popular that way, where, in Nigeria, for example, we're very talented in sport. So therefore, I think if it's available in school, we will definitely find talented fencers. But you have to make it accessible to those at the grassroots level, and to make it affordable so that people can take it up and enjoy it.
Okay, well said. Well said. I'm sure we are hoping that Nigeria will one day, or any African country, will be at par with it. Now that you are at the ends of affair of British fencing, for every leader that takes a position, he or she perhaps might see something that needs to be done that has not been done, or maybe to consolidate what has been done already. From our point of view, I'll probably be thinking that there's nothing to be done in British fencing, because where I stand from as an African, there's a lot still needs to be done. So you are not adding an African country's fencing where there's a lot of things that needs to be done, a lot. But obviously, a lot probably must have been done in British fencing, even if I'm not going to take example or going into details. at the ends of affair, what are the things that you think that still also need to be done from your own standpoint of view? Because I'm wishing that British fencing, Nigerian Fencing Federation, is like the British Fencing Federation. But now tell us what needs to be done also in British fencing to take it to the next level.
There is, I think, in every single federation, even the top fencing countries, there's always a lot of work to be done. I think in the UK, one of the things I want to work on is increasing the membership, because even though we have lots of fences, we can always have more. And the more fences you have, then the more popular the sport becomes. So one of the remits that I have at the moment, I think, is making sport more accessible, getting more people involved. We've got various programs. We're doing Muslim Women Fence. We're doing, This Girl Can Fence, to get more women into fencing, more young girls into fencing, just more people, increasing the membership, because I always believe that if you increase the membership, fencing is not just about, there's a competitive side, but there are lots of other benefits. The benefits, like I said, it's not just physical, it's mental benefits. It's about empowering people. It's about physical activity in the UK, trying to get more people physical. And some of this outdoor sports are not for everybody. So it's promoting a lot of indoor sports. So there's a lot of work to be done still, but also there's a lot of minorities that live in the UK, trying to get them involved in sport, but also, improving our competitive and elite squad to try and win medals. And, ultimately in a lot of sports, especially like fencing, the Olympics is the pinnacle that everybody strives to reach. So trying to give more athletes opportunities and experience to improve our coaching, our referee structure. There's a lot of things to do. And we can learn internationally. I mean, part of my role is an international role, and is trying to make links with different fencing confederations around the world. But because we can learn from each other and we can improve by collaboration. So that's another big part of my job, is to improve the collaboration between other fencing countries.
Yeah, well said. Before we go to the next question, and before we go on this quick break, we've not seen so much of the special needs in fencing. I mean, in every sport, there's a special needs people, and I've not seen. Perhaps I've seen, I've forgotten, but I'm not so clear at the point of view right now. But when do you want to start seeing more of collaboration, even in British fencing, because we are concentrating the first half of the program on British fencing? How do we encourage? Is it practicable? Do we see more special needs on wheelchairs with doing fencing?
Yes, we're also doing quite well in wheelchair fencing. We have a very, very good wheelchair fencing program, and so that's another part of the role. I'm really glad that you brought that up. We're developing resources to make wheelchair fencing a lot more affordable, because obviously you have to have specially adapted wheelchairs to fence, and we've just developed something called the sword seat, which is a seat that people can use in clubs to practice if they're in a wheelchair, so that they don't need to have an expensive high-end wheelchair to fence. We do very well in our wheelchair fencing program as well, because we have an elite center, and actually at the Paralympics we have a two-time Paralympic champion. So we have quite a few Paralympians. So we do, so World Ability Sport, that's the governing body for wheelchair fencing. We have quite a good relationship with them, and quite a few British officials that help out with World Ability Sport. So that's one of the things that I think we also can improve on. There's also a new project with autism as well, and fencing, because it's the sort of sport that we've found that people who are on the autistic spectrum can do. So there are a lot of special needs projects, and I tell you what, the wheelchair fences are some of the best fences I've seen, because their reflexes are so fast. And so I think, in fencing, in British fencing, we are doing a lot to encourage wheelchair fencing and other disabilities as well.
Well said. We also want to ask this before that big question just came to my mind. I want to know, as a great nation, British great nation, um, what has the British fencing done to help lesser countries about fencing? I mean, I know the nation, Britain, British, you know, they've done so well for the rest of other countries in other way. Now let's streamline that to fencing. What has British fencing done to other countries to make them develop?
So at the moment, I've have links with other countries, with Nigerian fencing, with other Ghana fencing, to try and help offer, if they want to come and train, and try and help them, to give them training opportunities. On a European level, we have been involved in something called the Solidarity Project, where we've been given some of our skills, like we're very good in referee development, for example. So we've held seminars with smaller European countries to enable them to train their referees in safeguarding, which is really important in sport. Actually, Britain lead the way really in safeguarding, and we've developed lots of programs within fencing, and we've gone to other smaller fencing countries to develop safeguarding in sport, and then train people so that they can deliver the program. So we've started out actually helping the smaller fencing countries within the UK through the European Fencing Confederation. And now, under my leadership, I'm hoping now that we can expand that not just to the European countries, but now to start to help African fencing, where I think globally, if you help the countries and more people fence, then it's good for everybody. So I think so far we've been doing a lot of good governance as well, helping smaller countries with their governance of the sport, because that's all important. If you want to have a professional setup or a sport that does really well, it's really important to have good governance, as well as good coaches, good referees, good athletes. So I think we're just sharing some of our knowledge with other smaller European countries, and hopefully to extend that more globally to African countries as well.
If, thank you very much. You still go on a quick break. We'll come back to you, and when we come back, we'll now look at Nigeria as a case study in fencing. I mean, Nigeria is one of the top nations in West Africa, definitely one of the top 5 in the whole of the continent. So when we come back, we'll look more closely to that. Don't go away. Welcome back. I'm sure you've been enjoying yourself. We've been talking about a sport that one of the young boys or girls watching us right now will probably want to be part of it, and that's fencing. It has always been a pause for a lot of people to see, was the helmet, was that a sword, is that a wrist sword, was that string drawing them? You are the right place to talk about that. And we still have the president of British Fencing talking to us. And let's look at Nigeria, Fencing Africa, Nigeria as the second topic of the day. Nigeria as a case study for fencing. One of the biggest fencing events in Africa happened late last year, where I met the president of British Fencing, Pat Ayeniro. Tell us the role British fencing played in having that World Cup in Nigeria.
Together with the Nigerian Fencing Confederation, as Nigerian Fencing Federation and British Fencing, because I've come along to a couple of events, smaller events that they hosted before, and just to help them through how to organize a competition. So I think we started this a few years ago when Nigeria hosted the African Junior and Cadet Championships. And then the year before that, we hosted a satellite, which is a smaller version. It's an FIE competition, but it was what we call a satellite. And so, proving that we could do those competitions together, then the FIE, which is the International Federation, could see that actually, Nigeria, we can host these competitions, and we can do a good job in hosting the competitions and bringing people to West Africa. So I think because we've done all of that work beforehand, and there's a lot of work that the Nigerian Federation had to go through to put all of that together. And then we got the World Cup, which we hosted in December, which was very, very successful. And I was very proud to be part of that. But I have to give credit to the Nigerian Fencing Federation for that. I mean, I was there as to assist them and to help them. But I'd say the president, Mr. Adeyinka Samuel, was very much a big part of that. And pulling all the moving parts together, he did a great job. So I think the credit has to be given to the federation, but also for them reaching out to ask for assistance and not being afraid to ask for help, because they know that once they have this knowledge and they learn, then they can be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, they will be holding the Senior African Championships in June, July this year, which is another big event hosted by Nigerian Fencing, where all these senior athletes in Africa should be attending, and that's another big competition that the International Federation has given Nigeria to host, and I believe the Commonwealth as well. So there's a lot of competitions that we will be hosting in the next few years, but that's all the hard work that Nigerian Fencing has put into making themselves that power. I think traditionally a lot of the events have gone to the North Africa and one or two in South Africa, but never in West Africa. So I think we've started that, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'm hopefully will always be collaborating with Nigerian Fencing to do the good work that they're doing and to continue the good work.
The tournament, what do you think Nigeria, because most times the problem of Nigeria is always the problem of many African countries, and what do you think, how satisfied are you with the competition, and what do you think Nigerian fencing needs right now? I know you have a very good relationship with the president, but now tell us what Nigerian fencing, have they done so much, how satisfied are you? Because in saying this is when we know the reality of what is on ground.
I think even in the UK, if we're hosting any competitions, we need funding is always a huge issue. And without sponsors and sponsorship, it's so difficult to be able to provide the standards that other countries or other competitions that they provide. So I think having support, whether it's from government or whether it's from private sponsorship, is quite key to being able to deliver a quality event. I think on what they did a great job, but there's always room for improvement. And I think you find that globally, not just in Nigeria or in Africa, I think funding is becoming an issue, and it is affecting sport and the delivery of sport. And we're seeing that a lot of sport is going towards some of the countries that can afford to host them. So therefore, we need to work hard on getting sponsorship to be able to fund the events, because it's really important for our athletes and our athletes of the future to see us hosting those events within our countries. It makes it cheaper for our own athletes who can't afford to maybe travel around the world, because within fencing, if you want to qualify and improve your ranking, you have to go to competitions globally. So we're actually saving our fencers of the future money if we can host one or two of these events within our country. So I think funding is one of the big issues. I think it's in all sports, but in fencing, which is one of those, it's not such a big event as soccer or athletics. So therefore, I think trying to get funding and sponsors is quite important.
Okay. Thank you very much, Patricia Eyenuo. We appreciate your time. Hopefully, we'll have you talk to us more extensively on the next part of our program. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We hope we extend that being the president of British Fencing. And this is another moment on the show today. It's time to draw the curtain as we go into another part of the program on the show. So these are draw the curtain for today. Same time next week, we'll be giving you all what you need to know in the world of sport. I'm Mudashiru Shitu. Bye for now.